One of the most common things about booking pro wrestling that you'll hear is that it's actually really easy. Just make matches and write stories that are good, and presto, you booked wrestling. The problem is that all these hack wrestling bookers just overthink it and have bad ideas. It's for this reason why rebooking videos are so popular online. It's why fantasy booking topics have populated forums since they started. It's why everybody complains about the booking of every company, because it's so simple. But just from, like, a mathematical standpoint, just the sheer odds of it, you would expect one wrestling company to be booked well for longer than a few months at a time, maybe. Just one in the infinite history of time is all that I ask. One booker who does their job well and doesn't have glaring oversights or flaws. The fact that this hasn't ever happened, maybe, has led me to the only reasonable conclusion. Booking wrestling must be the hardest thing in the world. Jade Cargill in WWE was always an interesting commodity. When she signed to the company, logic would dictate that she would go down to NXT for a little while and be built up with whatever super soldier serum they gave to make Sol Ruka like that. But she came over as a bigger name from AEW. She was a dominant champion there and has an undeniable look, so she was sent to the main roster immediately. However, her being on the main roster also presented problems logistically. At the time she was signed, no matter where she went on the main roster, she was going to be met with huge dominant stars, veterans who you can't just blow out, and workers who aren't necessarily going to make her look the best. Which leaves you in kind of a no man's land on how to use her to the best of her abilities. What WWE ended up doing is the smartest thing that they could possibly have done. She joined a tag team with Bianca Belair. I've never talked in depth about Bianca Belair before, but I want to make myself clear in case there was any confusion. I think Bianca is one of the best wrestlers alive. She's the most impressive wrestler I've ever seen with her level of experience, and sticking Jade with her in a tag team where Jade has to do half the work and can learn from Bianca is a stroke of genius. The two were a pretty dominant force as a tag team, as you'd expect. They quickly win the tag titles, and to this day have never eaten a fall as a tag team, instead losing the championships 1.5 times through circumstances. This is the platonic ideal of how you would book Jade Cargill in the WWE up to this point, in my opinion. She doesn't have a heavy workload, she gets to accrue experience alongside the best wrestler alive, and because wrestling is wrestling, you can eventually run a Bianca versus Jade match that will 100% hit because of the history they have together. It's perfect booking in that it yields the most while protecting the flaws. However, despite it being technically perfect, there are some things that I would change. There are a few ways that we can go about this, and we're going to go through all of them, but walk with me for a second. Post-Backlash 2024, when Jade and Bianca won the tag team titles, there are 3 distinct paths that we can deviate from the main timeline. One starts right after Backlash 2024, basically changing the entire relationship between the two, and 2 stem from the angle that is currently ongoing, with Jade Cargill being attacked and giving up the tag team championship. There are a lot of little intricacies that will need explaining, so I don't want to dwell on this for too long, but let me just get this out of the way. I hate rebooking videos. I think that they're arrogant, and I think that a lot of them treat wrestling booking more like TV shows than they treat them like wrestling. So there's a lot of stuff that sets up dead ends for characters or stories that I never really enjoy the idea of. All of that is to say that this isn't a video to say my idea for these stories are so much better, but more of a question of what is preventing them from doing these things. Because I hate to just lean on the notion that all wrestling bookers are incompetent and that some dumb dick YouTuber has all the ideas. I don't. There has to be something that I'm missing, but I don't know why these ideas, or something at least approaching them, wasn't in consideration. Going into talking about rebooking Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair, we have to lay out some general goals, otherwise we're just firing in the dark. We'll start with what we've already established. Jade and Bianca are a team, eventually they will fight. Just about every story that we're going to talk about ends up with Jade and Bianca fighting. We just have to get there somehow, but that does beg the question. What are the roles that they will take? Who is the face? Who is the heel? And how does it go? For me, it's difficult to fight the natural sway of their existence. Bianca Belair is the female John Cena. She represents the company in media appearances, she is the quintessential babyface, while Jade radiates dominant queen bee heel. We aren't going to lock these in because there are ways to work these roles that we'll talk about, but generally, We're going to operate under the premise that Bianca is the face and Jade is going to become the heel. We're going to try to operate in the realm of relatively realistic, so we aren't going to change the entire way that WWE can operate. We're not going to be booking them into a barbed wire death match, and Jade Cargill isn't going to be threatening to burn Bianca's home down. The first path that we're going to go down is one that I think fulfills the fewest goals, but I think it was a concept that could have been explored, at least in some form or fashion. When Jade Cargill was attacked, and people were speculating who done it, my initial idea was that the attacker could be a re-emergent Charlotte Flair. On the October 13th, 2023 episode of SmackDown, Charlotte has a segment where she has a brief little stare down with Jade, and there's clearly some tension. If you bring Charlotte back as the one who attacked Jade, you immediately reintroduce a top heel to SmackDown, and you transition Bianca Belair back into singles by having her feud with Charlotte. A feud that has actually never really happened, as matches between the two have been very sparse. The idea for the story is that Charlotte doesn't like these athletic rookies coming in and talking about how big and bad they are and not paying respect where it's due. That Jade walked in and acted like Charlotte wasn't the queen. You know that Charlotte promo. Just imagine it in your mind's eye. That being said, I'm not sure how you work this in a way that's realistic. Nia Jax at this time was the top heel on SmackDown, with Tiffany Stratton and Candice LeRae as her minions, so having another top heel be unrelated, and realistically having to get some minion from somewhere, just seems like overkill. But I do think that there is something here. I like this idea because it does give Bianca a path back into singles, it gives Jade someone to face, probably at WrestleMania, where she gets put into a big spot with a big star, and it gives a story reason for that tag team to dissolve, at least for the immediate future. Once again, I think that this path isn't really fleshed out, and it fulfills the fewest of our stated goals. It doesn't end with Bianca and Jade fighting. Jade is clearly a face, but I think that there's something here. There are already more baked-in reasons for Charlotte to face Jade Cargill than there is for her to face Tiffany Stratton. The other path we go down with Jade's attack is a bit more all-encompassing, and it involves the third player in all this, Naomi. Naomi is an interesting piece because she was alongside Bianca and Jade at the beginning, but slowly drifted away as she pursued the singles title. She came back to the company at the start of 2024 and was booked for pretty much the whole year as a solid upper card roster member, just below the Baileys and the Nias, but always being a solid threat. In the main timeline, where Jade gets attacked, Naomi steps in to prevent Bianca Belair from losing the championships, filling in as her tag team partner to continue that momentum. As of this recording, it was revealed that Naomi was the one who attacked Jade in a really strong segment with Bianca that I'll talk about later. But when Jade was first attacked, the first two suspects immediately, just based on wrestling history, were Bianca herself and Naomi. Putting aside how much I hate the idea that all tag teams need to break up with a betrayal and a heel turn, and whenever someone is attacked, it's always their allies in wrestling because betrayal is big with the kids, I drafted up a list of who would be the best options for who attacked Jade and who would be the worst. Charlotte was my best, obviously, but the worst two were absolutely Bianca Belair and Naomi. Bianca is the worst for obvious reasons. I think it's played out. There's no reason for her to attack Jade as they were the tag team champions together. The attack was revealed during a triple threat where Bianca had a chance to fight for the inaugural Women's United States Championship that she left to go help Jade. So Bianca is just losing opportunities and championships she held to attack Jade for what would be sure to be a flimsy reason, all to turn heel. It's a complete nightmare logistically, but even though it is the worst option, it is one that yields at least some upside. When I think of wrestling booking, I think that you have to look at every decision being made in terms of gains and losses. For example, when you put Bianca and Jade into a tag team, you lose Bianca as a singles wrestler, but you gain a prominent tag team, you gain a mentor for Jade, you gain a potential story between the two, and by pulling Bianca from the singles race, that opens it up for Bayley, Nia, and Tiffany without having to clumsily navigate around the elephant-sized goat in the room. Bianca attacking Jade is almost entirely losses, but there is a major tangible gain to having Jade versus Bianca in this way. If you think Bianca Belair's wrestling career is coming to an end sometime soon, you could want to transition Jade Cargill into the role that Bianca fills, that of a brand representative who can pose for media and look awesome. If that is on the table, then Bianca turning heel and passing her torch, so to speak, to Jade absolutely does wonders for that. I personally would never make this call because I think that the losses far outweigh even the potential gains. But in my opinion, even though Bianca is by far the worst option, there are still potential gains. Naomi being the one to attack Jade at the time was something that yielded literally nothing. First, you take Naomi, who is a solid uppercard babyface, and you immediately position her as a heel. But not just as a heel, a bitter and traitorous heel, the least versatile or interesting of all heels. Naomi would cut a basic cookie-cutter promo about how Jade got all of the attention and she was sick of paying her dues and being skipped over, so she plucked the golden goose. Blah, blah, blah. Jade comes back, beats Naomi. Cool little wrestling story, but then what? What is gained from this rivalry? Where are the wrestlers afterwards? Jade is no different. You're no closer to her versus Bianca, and you have burned Naomi as a character pretty much for good. This is what I meant when I talked about how some fantasy booking tends to treat wrestling stories like television. Because if this were a TV show, then Naomi has fulfilled her arc. She's been defeated and would never show back up again. But in wrestling, you now have a bitter loser heel who has no recourse or redemption available to her and no real direction to go. I always hated the idea of Naomi attacking Jade for this reason. You gain nothing and exclusively lose. My mind on this has changed a little bit, but we'll talk about it at the end. I'm cooking right now. So keeping this in mind, that I think that Naomi and Bianca being the ones to attack Jade is the worst, we pick up the story when Naomi becomes Bianca's tag partner, right as they begin to feud with Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez. Jade and Bianca had briefly feuded with these two in late 2024, where Liv and Raquel said that Bianca and Jade hated each other and were going to break up, and eliminated them from a battle royal on the November 4th edition of Raw. November 11th, Bianca and Jade face Liv and Raquel for the tag titles and end up winning, and then on November 22nd on SmackDown, Jade is attacked. I bring all of this up to say that Liv and Raquel have a background with Jade and Bianca, and that in this story, they are revealed to have attacked Jade, having laid the seeds of betrayal between the two and trying to isolate Bianca and get the title stripped from her and Jade as revenge for beating them. Where we go from here is where we get a little custom. Ultimately, their plan has failed because Naomi steps up as Bianca's partner to keep the tag titles. But because they view Naomi as a much lesser threat, they start antagonizing the two of them again, taunting them about Jade and saying that Jade was so strong, but Naomi is so weak and little compared to her. Basically, we really need to portray Naomi as the weak link, and in this way, you're pushing Jade in her absence. In the beginning, Liv and Raquel are proven right, as Naomi is pinned to lose them the championships. Naomi beats herself up. If you really want to push it, you could allude to her history with the tag titles that she left the company over with Sasha Banks. How she has always been viewed as a passenger and the weak link, and she let her friends down. Basically, you take Naomi and you put her in the driver's seat as the sympathetic underdog against Liv and Raquel, with her leading the charge to get the titles back, being the one to get the pin for the victory. Shortly afterwards, Jade Cargill returns. Bianca and Naomi are thrilled to see her, and after a little group hug, Jade says something like, "I appreciate you helping keep our titles warm, but it's time to give it back." This puts Naomi, and thus the audience, in an awkward position. She started with Bianca as a way to help them, but she has gone through months at this point of living and dying for the titles, losing them and gaining them back. She is attached to the titles and feels that she has earned it, and not just that she's a placeholder, so she refuses. Jade gets mad, saying that she was never the champion. Naomi pushes back, and this leaves Bianca in the middle, notably not supporting Jade or Naomi because she doesn't want to choose sides. If you really want to, you could push this further. Maybe Jade and Naomi have a match and Jade wins but disrespects Naomi afterwards. But the important thing is that because of either her indecision or her defending Naomi from further disrespect, Jade begins to have a problem with Bianca, seeing it as Bianca choosing Naomi over her. This leads to her eventual feuding with Bianca, and Jade says the iconic line that never was, "This is what I consider the golden scenario. You fulfill every obligation and hurt nobody. Bianca and Naomi can remain a tag team if you want. Jade turns heel and has a built-in feud with the two of them, and also Liv and Raquel. Naomi remains a consistent and solid face, and Jade is not completely locked in as a heel forever because she isn't insane. She just feels disrespected by Bianca and won't take that laying down." If I had the pen, this is absolutely what I book. I don't even question it. There's nowhere this doesn't fit in WWE's skeleton. You can have some banger matches, some solid stories, and you can accomplish it in not very many segments, because you know how WWE hates giving women too many of those. That path is the most detailed, because again, I think that should have just happened, and I don't know why they didn't do that. But the last path is what sees the most changes, because we start it directly after Backlash when they win the tag team championships. This one is pure fantasy booking and is the most unrealistic, but hey man, chill out. Why you gotta come out? So, Jade and Bianca win the tag titles. Woo, go them. Immediately after Backlash, the Queen of the Ring tournament starts, with Jade and Bianca placed in the SmackDown side of the bracket. I would have Jade and Bianca win their matches and meet in the SmackDown finals, with the two entering the match together with the tag titles, shaking hands, and the match is played completely straight. There's no rough stuff, it's a pure exhibition, but it's one that I would have Bianca win by roll-up. This does a couple things. It pushes Bianca to the finals of the tournament, it gets Jade's first loss out of the way, but it's an explainable loss, and it's something we can bring up later. Bianca wins the tournament and goes on to face Bayley at SummerSlam, reviving that feud with both as faces at the event where Damage Control debuted. In the build-up to that, I'd have Bianca and Jade also focusing on defending the tag titles, even having a Jade and Bianca versus Bayley and Naomi tag title match that Bianca pins Bayley in to build up the singles match that Bayley ends up winning to defend the championship. After SummerSlam, the two plug along defending the tag titles until Jade gets a title shot and beats Bayley, doing what Bianca wasn't able to do at SummerSlam. Maybe you have this happen at Bash in Berlin or on some SmackDown after SummerSlam. Ideally, it happens before, like, Survivor Series, but maybe at Survivor Series. With Jade as champion, you see Jade slowly become less interested in the tag titles. Bianca wants to defend them, Jade is focused on the singles title, she's being real Hollywood, she's big leaguing Bianca as the world champion. If you really wanted to get ambitious, maybe Jade starts being real cowardly in their tag matches. She takes a bump and immediately tags out, and her explanation is that she needs to protect herself to defend her title. To which Bianca says, "What about our titles?" Eventually, these decisions and lack of chemistry catch up with them. They're out of sync in some sequence, Bianca gets rolled up for 3, and she gets mad at Jade, saying that she abandoned them. Jade says that Bianca is the one who got pinned, and Bianca responds that when they had their match, it was Jade who got pinned, so watch who you're talking to. Blah, 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 they fight. I love this idea. Obviously, it's mine, but I think that it accomplishes a lot. It has Jade wrestle a bunch of matches. She's getting reps in constantly. You run these two being champion for nearly a year, and it's tied in with the main women's title, building to a match between the two feeling nuclear because they've been with one another for almost a year, and Bianca being kept out of singles work directly benefiting Jade. You tell this long story between these two, you make a huge new star, you have a ton of great matches. It's way too ambitious for WWE. It absolutely could not exist within WWE structure because everyone else on SmackDown and most of them on Raw just get steamrolled for a year. But that's why I don't make booking videos, because I don't care about your structure if it's bad. I think wrestling should be good, personally. So we've arrived at the end with what has happened with Naomi, Jade, and Bianca. It feels weird making this video with a story that is currently in progress, so what I describe they should do could just be what they end up doing, but if it's what happens, then I'm taking credit, because it's a good, if unoriginal idea. Like I said earlier, I would not have had Naomi attack Jade. I think that it's a move that you almost exclusively lose with, but after the segment with Naomi and Bianca, some new possibilities opened up for me. First, Naomi's motivations do not lock her in as being jealous and bitter, but instead portray her as someone who is trying to help Bianca. Stupidly, I want to add, but she's trying to help Bianca. This on its own is big, because that means she is not burned and unsalvageable as a babyface eventually, which is pretty much the only way Naomi works. Second, the way Jade and Naomi have interacted has been strange, at least to my sensibilities. Jade is returning after a long layoff and brutally attacked Naomi at Elimination Chamber, and then again at SmackDown, where Naomi admitted she attacked her. But both times, Jade gets very violent, and Naomi barely put up a fight, with the SmackDown beating in particular seeing Naomi call out for Bianca as she got hit with Jade's finisher. Now, maybe I'm giving the writers more credit than they deserve, but the way Jade is attacking Naomi and the way Naomi is reacting do not scream babyface getting their lick back. Or at least it has the potential to get there. Given what has happened so far at the time of this recording, here's how I would proceed. Naomi basically keeps trying to no-sell Jade, saying it's not about her, and keeps apologizing to Bianca. It's important that Naomi never goes further than she did on SmackDown when she called Bianca Belair an ungrateful bitch. You need to keep her as sympathetic to Bianca as possible, because if you go any further, this next part doesn't work. Jade keeps attacking Naomi and gets a match at WrestleMania to shoot the fair one. She wins, obviously, but the week after WrestleMania, Naomi is walking backstage and just decides to move on. But Jade keeps attacking her, saying that it's up whenever she sees her. At this point, Jade has been beating Naomi with a one-sided bat for weeks now. She got her match, she won their match, but she keeps going. At which point, Bianca Belair intervenes. This part is incredibly important. If Jade just attacks Naomi for 6 weeks, you really run the risk of making it this fun thing like Bronson Reed doing the tsunami on people every week. Bianca needs to stop Jade from attacking Naomi and needs to feel sympathy for her. At which point, Jade gets mad. What do you mean I can't violently assault this woman for 6 weeks and also for the rest of my life? You better let me, or I'ma wrestle you. Jade and Bianca tensions start here, and you can fast roll it or slow roll it. In a perfect world, Bianca wins the championship at WrestleMania, this story happens, and Bianca vs. Jade happens for the title at the currently rumored Evolution PLE for May or July or whatever. Basically, I want a world where Naomi isn't sacrificed forever into the purgatory of being an enhancement heel just to make Jade Cargill look good and then get no closer to a Bianca vs. Jade match. They've already pulled the trigger on Naomi attacking Jade, but with how good that segment was, some more doors were opened. Wrestling booking might be harder than I think it is. But if you're a booker and you see an open door and through the doorway is just a good-ass story that benefits everyone involved, I feel like it would be rude to not go through it. Just this once. That's the end of my video. I don't know if we solved anything. I just made a rebooking video after saying I don't like them. It's different when I do it though. I chef this bullshit up different around these parts. Thanks for watching.